Welcome into Sports Wrap on the Fired Up Network. I'm Gerald Bentley, joined by the Root Dog himself, Rudy Reyes. And you can watch us wherever you get your apps. Just download that True TV Plus app. It's the easiest way to get the Fired Up Network. A big week. We're coming up on the All-Star Week in baseball, the latest one ever. It's an international break for most of your soccer leagues. We got the Euro Championship coming up later today. We have the Copa Championship, and it's only days away now from the official start of the National Football League. And we didn't even mention the Major League Baseball draft is going on, but nobody knows the Major League Baseball draft's going on because they haven't figured out that it's actually good TV content.
It's great.
Rudy, what's your
great TV content?
Yeah, I mean, my God, what the hell's wrong with them? What's your biggest takeaway for the week? Yeah, I mean,
biggest takeaway is there's just so much to unwrap. It's almost funny, and that's why you're on the sports app.
Yeah,
I think that the Djokovic, not to be confused with the Denver Nuggets Joker, but the joke was basically on him. Back-to-back wins for Alcaraz at Wimbledon.
Oh, yeah, Wimbledon, sure.
That says a lot about the resilience of Alcaraz, how he was able to find himself. Not only has he done it once, but he's done it twice to the Joker. So it makes you wonder, is Djokovic in his time of dominance over with? Where does he stand? He didn't bring his A game. He didn't have his A game the entire game. And Alcaraz just capitalized on every opportunity, from volleys to being up front in the court to just, basically slamming the door shut on any possibility that Joker may have had to get back in this game.
Well, time catches up with everyone, and tennis is no difference. There is always that next generation coming up. Everybody who lives in
part of it
eventually falls to age because you can't teach youth. And you lose speed, and the people who aren't supposed to make the big runs make the runs. There was a big presence of U.S. players in Wimbledon for the first time in a long time. So maybe that international sport is shifting a little bit back to America. And huge international sports time because the Olympics are coming up right around the corner, right here. Two players from Sporting Kansas City, the team I cover regularly, are departing and already in the U.S. Olympic camp before the Paris Olympics start. Jake Davis and John Pulskamp, starting midfielder, right back for Sporting, and the backup goalkeeper, they're going to be joining Team USA. And multiple players from the Kansas City Current, the women's team that I cover, are departing to join their nation's Olympic teams. Canada, Brazil, and I believe the Netherlands are all represented by current players, and the U.S. team, Claire Hutton's an alternate. So you got a lot of international feel going in sports right now, plus that Copa America final that's happening at Hard Rock Stadium. And my bold and daring prediction from last week has already happened. We didn't have to wait for Greg Berhalter to lose to Canada in the first match back for the U.S. national team after their disastrous Copa. He's already gone. The U.S. national team said, okay, that's enough. Let's move on. we need to do something. We got to win. So Greg Berhalter.
Done. See ya. And we actually talked about that too, because I think that he had a presence, and that's one of the reasons why they went ahead and hired him, but somehow he just not only lost the game, the initial against Uruguay, but I think it was more about losing the locker room, losing the guys' trust, and enabling them to ultimately say, you know what, the morale is not what it should be, and we need to change and go a different direction. And of course, it always goes down to the head coach in any major sport. We talked about that too. But I think, moreover, it was a good move, maybe not a great move, to let him go at this particular stage. I would want to see what he does formidably with personnel changes and groupings, and trying to mix and match to get the right guys in the right position against Canada. But it is what it is. He's gone. He's done. Time to turn a new leaf. Maybe get somebody in there who's been there, done that for Team USA years ago, or I honestly don't know. I don't know who's part of the hiring decision, but the front office really needs to make a change in regards to who they look at and the reasonings that would put them in position in order to be a better and more integral part of winning for this men's national team.
Well, I think it's interesting too, and in a lot of cases you see this when a team is a team, a national team, a program in college is debating whether the coach should stay or go, they should go. As soon as you start asking the question, should this person be back? The answer is probably going to be no, because unless they win a championship, unless they advance to a final, there is nothing that's going to make it work. And when they got into the back and forth with Berhalter and Claudio Reyna, one of the U.S. legends, and we weren't playing Gio Reyna, who's one of our best players, because they were arguing back and forth, he should have been gone then. There's no reason to bring him back. They had another search committee. They decided, you know what? We got the right guy. We're bringing him back. That was mistake one. And now you got a 2-year run up to the World Cup. So it's go time, because when you look at national teams, all of these guys play in a major high-level league, be it MLS here in America, La Liga, League One, the EPL, the Bundesliga. You don't have that much time with them. You really don't. So the clock is ticking. I know 2 years seems like an eternity, but they literally just hired a director of transportation here in Kansas City to try and figure out the logistics to get the international fans that are going to be attending the World Cup matches here and the 3 teams that are going to be headquartered in Kansas City, and get the people from the airport to Sporting's facility, the U.S. national team facility in KCK, which is about 20 minutes on the highway from the airport, the Kansas City Currents facility, which is about 15 minutes from the airport, and the KU Jayhawks facility, which is a nice 45-minute jaunt from the airport. And there's going to be open practices. There's going to have to be tremendous amounts of logistics, because unlike California, unlike New York, Boston, Chicago, the mass transit in Kansas City consists of a streetcar that goes from the River Market to the Country Club Plaza, and that's it. And as I stated, none of these locations are anywhere close to those, nor is Arrowhead Stadium, which is about a 35-minute drive with traffic from the airport, with no public transit. So the city of Kansas City, the region, the sports commission, they're already on full court press getting ready for the World Cup, and worried they started too late. So the U.S. national team is looking at it from that perspective. They've already started too late. Now it's go time, because you don't want to waste the potential of Christian Pulisic in his prime, Tyler Adams in his prime, Gio Reyna in his prime, Timothy Weah in his prime. This is the best shot the U.S. has to advance somewhere. They're playing at home. These guys have grown up together. I mean, let's go. It's go time.
Yeah, I think this is the final of the final. I mean, if they can't get it done in some way, shape, or form and save face from that loss against Uruguay, this is basically c'est la vie for a lot of these guys, a lot of the veterans, the ones that carry the leadership label that they wear so well on their, as a badge of honor, if you will, on their unis, on their shirts, on their sleeves, with their emotions all tied up together. This is going to be a very, very important match. Do they have a leg up against anybody else coming into the area? Maybe, maybe not. That's it's kind of, playing at home is cool, but do you have a real home field advantage? Probably not. But again, I guess we'll find out if that ship will sail that direction the minute the game kicks off, literally.
I mean, they'll get.
Sure, completely agrees with me on that one. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
I mean, they'll get to play against some inferior competition. They'll have the opportunity to knock some wins out. They will get an easy draw, but for most of these guys, they're going to be here for a couple of World Cups. For Timothy Ream, he's 36. This is it. I mean, this is the end of the road. So motivation should be really high.
It should be high as well as the morale. The morale should be high
too. Morale, yeah, it's got to, and there'll be a boost, right? There'll be a patriotic boost.
Oh, sure.
They'll be okay, but it's time to make that change.
Sure.
Hey, I wanted to ask about. We'll get back to the baseball draft coming up today. How in the world we've talked about baseball being out of touch, and what is it going to take for baseball to become America's pastime again? Well, let's do a little comparison. One of these things is not like the other, like they used to do on Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just isn't the same. The NFL draft draws 500,000 people. Is the #1 rated show on TV for 2 nights. The NBA draft is on 3 networks. Primetime. Draws millions of viewers. Sells out an arena. The Major League Baseball draft is a webcast that's available on MLB.com streaming channel. Nobody knows the names of the guys being drafted. Nobody has any idea for years if the pick is good or bad, and nobody watches it. And they degraded the draft even more by lumping it into All-Star Weekend. So the general managers who are running the draft aren't even at the All-Star game. They're doing it from their stadiums via webcast. So there isn't even a media event to cover if you wanted to. I mean, what the hell are they doing? It's insane.
There are a lot of things you can take away from this. And one of the things that I can kind of stem back to, historically speaking, you look at the NFL, they've been around a long time, not as long as Major League Baseball, but still very formidable in regards to the audience, the marketing, the merchandising, even though they have to pay billions of dollars to DirecTV because of the failure of the Sunday ticket. One thing. I mean, it's probably pennies in the bucket for the NFL, but again, it's one of those things they have to contend with, and clearly they're going to appeal it. However, I just think they have the viewing audience. They're targeted. They know they have done so much in that regard from a media standpoint of acquiring all the outlets, knowing it's a money maker, knowing it's a viewer maker. That's just what it is. Baseball, on the other hand, has almost like the moniker well placed by saying that we're no longer America's pastime. Why? Well, there's a few reasons behind that. First of all, they have a horrendous partnering and partnerships with LGBTQ plus, as an example, promoting some radical ideologies associated with that or other entities. And the sad part is that could they be changing their ways about how they do business? Maybe, but they haven't, and they probably won't anytime soon. Could the American public, the viewing audience, demand more from Major League Baseball? They should. I think baseball deserves to be demanding more from their internal organizational repertoire to say, you know what, we need to do something different. We need to hold ourselves accountable for the mistakes that we continue to make. Now, look, by all means, they've done banning the shift, pitch clock designation, maybe a designated hitter in a universal capacity. There's so much debate going on right now as to what, when, how, and why. I think more importantly, when you look at the backlog to all of this that Rob Manfred engineered just barely 2 years ago, supporting the 2021 All-Star game out of Georgia after the state passed legislature because of election and integrity measures. So, I mean, there's just a lot of questionable moves that Major League Baseball has ultimately done to almost put themselves in the corner. We say, don't put baby in the corner. Well, maybe MLB is the baby in the corner right now in the room. And are they going to be able to compare to NFL viewership? No. Are they going to compare to NBA viewership? No. And sadly enough, well, they should, but look, numbers don't lie. I mean, there are millions and millions of viewers for NBA, and per every 15 people, one's watching baseball, right? So you look at this and think to yourself, how can Major League Baseball get back into the spotlight? So let's look at the solution components. We've already looked at the problems that they face, but the solution components are this. They need to do a lot better internal or organizational demands from within the hierarchy of Major League Baseball, front offices, Rob Manfred, all the moving parts and pieces, player personnel, things of that nature, and have that trickle down. You have to follow success. And in Major League Baseball, it's not following success. What are they following? What are they creating? What nuances and ebbs and flows are they going to incorporate to put America's pastime back into the America's viewership and on their TV screens and their handheld devices and everything they're in? You mentioned the Major League Baseball draft. I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So,
no idea.
because exactly. Because I'm so stuck and forward to looking for the NFL season and training camps and rookies show up throughout the U.S. for that matter, from Florida all the way to Minnesota, and everywhere down to California and Texas, so there's just so much going on. Speaking of Texas, that's where the All-Star game is. For those that don't know, it's you have the home run derby, which I always enjoy watching, no matter what. I just think that there's a lot that baseball can actually do, and without words, because words without actions are just words, and they're not going to change people's minds as to what they're going to tune into or what they're not going to tune into, unless they make efforts to, again, follow what's working and not digress into what's not working, because that puts themselves in the corner.
Well, and they need to get on the same page, because I think a huge thing that's helped the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Soccer is that they collectively negotiate. The owners are in it together. All three leagues have salary caps, hard salary caps. All three leagues have shared media rights. Shockingly, all three leagues have parity where small market teams are able to consistently compete, because you can keep your stars. It's not a guarantee that when somebody's a superstar player, they're going to bail out, or it's a major news story when somebody re-signs, like Bobby Witt Jr. re-signed with the Royals for 11 years. That was a shock, because that hadn't happened in Kansas City in years. The reason the Royals went from winning the World Series in 2015 to 7 years journeying through the desert to get here is because their guys were coming up on the end of their first contract. The window was closed, and they only kept one player out. They kept two. They kept Alex Gordon and Salvador Perez. Everybody else is gone, and the replacement levels weren't there, because they traded their prospects in order to get over the top to win, which, hey, great. Man, you win the World Series. You can't take that away. But you sacrificed 5 years in the process of doing it. And that's happened in baseball as well. Right. And then you look at the fact that people just can't see the game. I mean, here, Bobby Witt Jr. this year, and I didn't even know this, and I'm in Kansas City, is the first player in Major League history with 50 extra base hits and 20 stolen bases before the All-Star game. First person to ever do it. He has the second best offensive season ever in terms of bases and extra base hits by the All-Star break, second only to Ian Kinsler, which I didn't even know Ian Kinsler had that season, and he's from Missouri. He was an All-American for MU and then played for the Rangers. But you have superstars like a Bobby Witt Jr., like a Paul Skeens with the Pittsburgh Pirates. You're wearing the Pirates hat. How about this insanity? Paul Skeens goes out there, throws 7 innings of no-hit baseball. He's at 99 pitches. The guy's a machine. He's a metronome. Just keep him out there. He's just going to keep firing him. Get your no-hitter. Give him the next start off. Who cares? Yeah. He got through the 7th inning on 6 pitches. He wasn't tired. They pull him and put in, Sparky, the reliever. So you go from being possibly a historical game, nationwide news, to putting your clown suit on and the red nose because you pulled the guy who's a dominant star, was the number 1 pick of the draft last year. So where you could elevate the draft to actually being something important, because it was like an NFL draft. You took the guy number 1 and man, he's an immediate impact, not going to go play in Omaha or Columbus for 6 years. And now you're de-emphasizing him to being just like one of the other starters. And magnify it to the point that you can't see him pitch anyways, because the games are all tied up on these greed-induced contracts with these regional sports networks that can't get out of their own way, like Bally Sports, so nobody can see the players anyways.
To your point about Paul Skeens, I think that it was a great disservice to hear him pull. I listened to it on Sirius XM because they have the rights to
have all the play-by-play,
MLB extra innings, and that's just what they do. I used to work for Sirius XM, and one of the things that I do know is that they keep their top markets. They make sure that the guys who are doing the audio, like I was, making sure that everybody heard the commercials and the cut-ins and the cutouts and all that good stuff. Back to the game itself, I think it was a disservice to Paul Skeens, who's done so much for this franchise in a very early, his first rookie year, where he holds numbers that no prior Pirate starter had ever done. And then you pull him for what? You talk about player management in the NBA. Well, this is time management, right? Because you recognize that you have enough time to throw so many pitches. I don't even think he hit 70 pitches. I don't think. Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. He didn't. Well, right. But what I'm saying is that if he was giving up hits, runs, committing errors, okay, you're probably giving a little bit too much time in 99 pitches to right that ship, right? But and then to put on someone else who basically lackluster player in his stead wasn't exactly the right move, in my opinion. So I question. And going back to your media point, nobody would be able to watch that. No, all you can do is hear it. Well, I'm a visual guy. I like to watch video. I'm on television. I'm a news reporter at a TV station. So when I want to see something visual, what do? I turn on the TV. I don't want to hear it. I want to watch the game. But because of the mishandling of contracts and negotiations, it didn't quite go over very well with a lot of the Bally Sports or your NBC, your CBS, your Channel 11, your Fox syndicates. Basically, they just blackballed the American public of being able to watch the games because of these inflated contracts that basically went nowhere. They went south. Bally's couldn't even pay their bill for the first month of this season. And you had MLB picking up the slack for these guys who could not get out of their own way, who continually don't know how to get out of their own way. What are they doing with money? What are they doing with these millions of dollars that they received just within the first year of operation? Very questionable at best.
Well, keep in mind, Bally Sports is ran by the same people who used to run Sinclair Broadcasting Sports. That's who it is. Bally's is only a title sponsor, and they're gone after this year as it continues to limp through bankruptcy. They sold at a time when the WWE just pocketed billions in TV money, when All Elite Wrestling is going to get a massive contract from Time Warner, especially with the NBA leaving Time Warner, going to the streaming apps. Time Warner's going to keep All Elite Wrestling. They're going to get a ton of money. Sinclair Broadcasting, Bally Sports, they couldn't figure out a way to make money on pro wrestling. They sold Ring of Honor Wrestling, which was the number 3 promotion in the country at the time, had a national TV contract. They sold it for $40 million. Conservatively, it was estimated at being worth somewhere around $500 million. So they sold it for less than 10% of its value. That's not good business. And they did that so they could pay some of these baseball fees. But, it shows where greed isn't always good, because local teams took the guaranteed rights fees from these regional sports networks and locked themselves into long contracts, which let them miss this wave of huge television rights fees, because the only thing that's going up on TV is sports broadcasting. That's it. Live events. Everything else is down. And every league's getting a ton of money. MLS got over $1 billion. The NBA just signed a $76 billion contract. They're going to get $7.6 billion per year to split among the teams. Football, their contracts doubled. Even with the salary cap going up, it's going to have to go up even more next year, because they're going to have so much more TV revenue. The National Women's Soccer League, their ratings are up 95%.
The WNBA is up over 76%.
Like 10%. Yeah. And baseball, nobody can see it. If you watch a local baseball game, you're going to see commercials for a traffic attorney. If you're in a state with legal marijuana, you'll see some marijuana dispensary commercials, a couple of random beer commercials, maybe a plumber, some local AC company. They're not getting advertising revenue. So the whole model is so utterly broken, and it's really a shame. And it's going to take a few years to fix because they're stuck in these contracts and they're at the mercy of the court to let them out.
Well, I'm going to add on to that. National sponsorship from a nationwide viewing audience is also not working for them. The types of contracts are very similar to the local, right? Because predominantly when I was running boards for SiriusXM, there are no local spots at all whatsoever. We're talking national, right? We're talking SiriusXM spots as well. Now, there are some instances where I was running, I had no reason to touch the board whatsoever because they were running spots for the local media, your plumbers, your attorneys, your pest control, your eateries, your pizza restaurants, things of that nature. So I had no reason to touch the boards for national, but there were those games that were slated between two hot teams with two very good records who historically have played extremely well, all kinds of national spots, right? So I think that when you think about this segmentally, what is it going to look like from a larger gamut for running national sponsors? Well, do national sponsors want to run on things like SiriusXM? They clearly would have to answer that question. I cannot. Your Foxes, your CBSs, your NBCs. What does that look like from a national perspective? Even the station that I work at, you have a national sales manager there who's very nice, by the way, and he kind of explained the ebbs and flows of national marketing, which brings in hundreds and thousands of dollars on any given weekly basis. Add that up times 30 days. Add that 60, 90, 120, 365. You see where I'm going here? So from an economic standpoint, a lot of the national advertisers are staying away from the local media because they realize that they're only reaching a certain targeted audience. Even Nielsen rankings go constantly haywire at times. And I say constantly haywire because that's really kind of where they're at. They're either accurate or they're not accurate. I think Major League Baseball has an uphill battle to climb in regards to what they're going to do moving forward to get in those national spots, those national companies, your Terminex Pest Control or your pizza chains or your national plumbers and your Larry H. Parkers. You're going to have to find ways to work around it, work with what you have. I think it's a really steep hole Major League Baseball is trying to crawl out of.
Well, and they make it harder on themselves because since the only national games are a small package on ESPN, a small package on Fox, then the playoffs are scattered across all sorts of different outlets. You're not really selling much national ads and you're not creating superstars. I mean, I just read Bobby Witt Jr. is having the second best offensive season in terms of total bases in the history of Major League Baseball. And I don't think anybody knows it. I don't know it. And I live in Kansas City and I've covered the Royals this year. But I actually can't watch the games unless I'm going to them because I can't get them on TV and I can't get the app to work on the TVs I have in the house. So, I mean, it's a huge problem and they're not making themselves a easy target for advertisers. If I'm advertising for a national car company and I know I can call one person and get my ad on every MLS game, every NBA game, every NFL game, I'm going to do that way before I'm going to call 30 different companies to figure out if I can run ads on baseball games and then determine, okay, well, hang on. I understand you're this size market, but your contract only allows you to reach 15% of the viewers in the city. I'm not interested. I'm out. And that's how you get games where your biggest advertiser is, if you've been in a traffic accident, call me. You don't pay a cent until you win. And that advertising isn't covering the bills.
No, it's not effective at all. There's one way
welcome
each
here.
team. There's one way each
here.
team. Right. Well, of course. Yeah, of course you're welcome there. Each team could potentially put enough money aside, and I know that teams like the Pirates maybe contemplating working in it to where their app would include being able to pay for local games for those that cannot attend a game. Same thing for the Royals. Same thing for the Twins. Same thing for the Reds. If they would incorporate creating their own broadcast entity, which by no means there's so much involved in that entire process, but to tap in to the audio feed, maybe not quite the video feed, but the audio feed while you're showing the video, for each team to be responsible for that or to incorporate something like that is possible.
Sure is.
But do they want to do that? Do they have the funds to? Have they allocated what it's going to take? Most of these guys that come in are freelancers. I take nothing away from their work because they do exquisite jobs. And a lot of the games that I hear on Fox or I hear on ESPN, most of those guys are freelancers, the play-by-plays and the color analysts. And so they don't get paid as much. So you can work with that model and say, well, these are freelancers. What would it take to incorporate these freelancers to work for us, or get a second pair of freelancers that will be in a booth maybe next to them on the top tier, like say it's Angel Stadium, right? So I know a couple guys that currently work up there, but you can shift over to the room next to it, over a little bit to third baseline or a little bit over to first baseline, and still be able to call the game. So if each team respectfully is able to navigate around what is currently blocking their local demographic from watching these games, then that can easily be solved. In turn, you have to perform marketing, advertising, put the dollars where it counts, because without dollars, it makes no sense, right? So put that money into those areas, contribute to your local people watching the game. Remember when we did not have cable, we had air channels. Well, those air channels are still being used, but they're used for a different purpose now, right? So utilize an air channel, maybe a non-digital channel, if you will. Or you used to be able to get baseball. You used to be able to get Major League Baseball and listen to a Dodger game on an AM transistor radio.
Yeah.
Those days are gone. Now you have to have a subscription. Well, that's great and wonderful, but incorporate a component inside of the app that gets people closer to the game, that would bring up the numbers, a viewing audience or listening audience. Run with that for an entire baseball season. It's not that long, but it's relatively long. And see what that looks like by the end of it. Do you have the subscribers? Do you have to raise the prices? Can you lower the prices? What can you do to get the viewing audience in your demographic to watch your games? And if they can do that, that would bring in so much more additional revenue that they can certainly find a way to put back in the system and to just keep working with what's working.
Who knows? Amazon may bail them out if Amazon takes over Bally's, because here, the MLS season pass, the way it works, every game's on TV with a national broadcast team.
Right.
But if you want to listen to the local broadcast, for every team, they kept their radio broadcast. So if you want to listen to former Sporting goalkeeper John Kempen break down the game, you can watch it on Apple TV, and you can pick the local announce feed, and you get the radio announcers that are covering the game and watching that video feed, so they have the same replays. It's not rocket science. There's other leagues doing it already. Hey, getting into another sport, because I really can't even talk about the All-Star game, because honestly, outside of Shohei Ohtani, Gunnar Henderson having a good year and the Yankees killing it until having a cold stretch, I honestly don't know much about any of the teams. And the Blue Jays have been a disappointment. There's the baseball rundown.
Well, there's a lot of disappointments, but there's also a lot of winners too.
Yeah, no, the Royals need to win 5 more games to match their total of all of last year. An amazing turnaround. It's not getting covered at all.
You're right, and the Pirates need just 2 more games, especially if they win today and tomorrow before the All-Star game, the All-Star break, and back at 500. Paul Skeens named the NL starter for pitching, and deservedly so, because he's been nothing but short of lights out against every team that he's faced. So
Amazing
again, one
story.
of those things that people really need to know about, really need to hear about. The All-Star Game is happening in Arlington, Texas. You have tons of starters. You have guys that have been in this game a very long time. And when I say a long time, maybe not in baseball years, but in human years, that's a long time. There's a lot of wear and tear. You know, you're Bryce Harper from the Phillies. You have Aaron Judge, who's part of some of the players that are being elected. There are 10 teams representing the All-Star lineups, with the Phillies leading the way because, well, look at their record. They have the best record in baseball.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's players from the Guardians, the Brewers, the Padres are sending 2 guys, the D-backs, of course, the Dodgers with the highest payroll in Major League Baseball history. The Blue Jays are sending guys, as
everybody's got one.
I mean, yeah, everybody at least has one. Well, Pirates have 2, which predominantly that's kind of what they get. They're one of the smallest markets in Major League Baseball. They have one of the smallest caps in Major League Baseball. And for the most part, they don't get the viewing audience. You have to go to a PNC in order to even watch a game, unless you're a local guy. And in local, they believe in sending out local signals to local people. And so you're able to watch your game with the IC Light sponsorship and things of that nature, and Iron City Beer, which has been around there for over 100 years. So, I mean, there's so many different ways that the All-Star, they're a group of individuals designed to build the All-Star game to what it should be. I think this is probably going to be, at least from a hopeful, realist perspective, a way to turn Major League Baseball around back to the larger viewing audience in relation to that. We were just discussing that. But, I mean, you have guys who have killer RBIs. You know, you have 55 RBIs, 15 home runs, or a 26-year-old batter in the AL, Gunnar Henderson and Rushman. You know, these guys have been the no names. I remember that hit by pitch during that Yankees-Orioles game just the other day, where you just basically charge off the mound, and you've seen the manager and skipper coming out of the Yankees dugout, and, you know, all benches clear, that kind of thing. Yeah. And you're going to see that, you know, you're just going to. It's not like it's hockey. We're going to carry around sticks. Hopefully, don't bring the bats in, because that could hurt even worse than a hockey stick. But, you know, there's so many different things, like Vlad Jr. You know, he's an all-star, 4th year in a row guy who's proven year after year he's an all-star on a team that seems to need more stars if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. And, of course, you know, they don't get a lot of love. Why? Because they're up north, like north of Minnesota. North. Like when I say Minnesota, I mean Minnesota. You know, the Midsummer Classic, I think, is one of those unheard of anomalies, and they need to get back into the spotlight. I love watching the Home Run Derby. Probably the most favorite of favorites for me is watching the Home Run Derby. These guys hitting dingers, you know, 400 feet in the second tier and just knocking the lights out, and fans just going crazy. I mean, there's so much alike about the All-Star game, as Gunnar Henderson in his first All-Star appearance, you know, ever. Maybe he'll get another one. Maybe he'll play again, you know, in the following year. Jose Ramirez from the Guardians, you know, this is his 3rd All-Star game. There's just so much to like. There's so much to like. How can you not like this? I do, and I love the Home Run Derby. The All-Star game, I don't know. You're going to really have to put the screws in me to get me to watch that.
It doesn't make for the most entertaining of baseball now, because you're going to run out 8 starters for 6 innings, going full go for an inning. It makes it really hard to score. So, yeah. Hey, let's shift over. The Olympic Games are coming up really soon. And are you excited for the Olympics? In Kansas City, we got a little bit of a jump start, because Kansas City homegrown player, the player who just signed a big long-term extension with Sporting, homegrown player who's going to be here for a long time, Jake Davis, named to the Olympic team. He was one of the extra additions to the team after the build-up. He's been starting MLS. His best friend is on the team. Gianluca Busio is a former Sporting player, so it should be an easy transition. Here's what Jake said about getting named to the Olympics.
Obviously, Olympics is humongous. I mean, it's the world's tournament, I guess. And I guess I've never had the chance to represent the United States and wear the jerseys, so I think it's special for me, especially being this old. I guess it's different, like when you're younger and you go to youth camps and stuff. I mean, that's same thing, but now, you know, I'm a grown man and I'm going to the Olympics, and I think it's truly an honor.
And, he's talking about being a grown man. I believe he's 21, but he's going to go there, and he's able to follow in the footsteps of his head coach, Peter Vermees, who did the same.
Actually, we have those two, and we also have Boots going. So we have three guys, currently involved in that group. So I'm happy for them. I had a chance to represent, the United States in the Olympics in '88 in Korea, and so I think it's a proud moment for them. It's a proud moment for the club. And the other thing too is, as I told both of them, you just got to be ready, because you never know. Something can happen really quickly with somebody, and next thing you know, you find yourself starting. So be ready for that.
Are you excited for the Olympics as the patriotic fever started building up? Because it's getting really close.
It's extremely close. I think I'm more concerned about the water in Paris. No, I say that because there was a story about a 75-year-old man who decided to take a swim, in one of the lakes, and of course they're always concerned about the murky waters. And murky waters doesn't exactly spell clean, to me. Murky and clean are two completely different things. I mean, it's probably a lot to do about nothing, right? I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I think that when it comes to the games, and I think that when you look at the Americans involved in it, it's starting to build a little bit. I mean, it's not a full-blown quite yet. I'm not going to walk around the house in red, white, and blue. I mean, Lord knows there are days where I dress for work and it's red, white, and blue just by default, because it just kind of goes together, right? I'm actually quite excited for the Olympic Games. I think the Americans pull out quite a few golds. In what events, that remains to be seen. Maybe even water polo, that could be one. And right now it's summer. It's summer in France. I mean, it's beautiful there right now. And how can you not like it? The Americans are going to be dominant on the run tracks. It's just what's interesting to me is that we have gone so far as to win the games that we're supposed to win, but not win the ones that we were expected to win, right? Because of the expectations, I guess, that are set maybe a little bit too high in regards to who's playing, who's going. And Olympic trials, let's put this into some type of some type of context, right? So you have your Olympic starters, then you have those people who qualified to be on that start list, but didn't quite make it on the start list. They're like an alternate, right? We hear about alternates all the time. There are sometimes cases where the alternates are better than some of the starters, maybe a little bit younger than some of the starters. And when you look at places like Ukraine, which will have people entering the Olympics, which is shattered as their country is, you kind of wonder, it could happen anywhere. It could happen here as well. So for those that are fighting for freedom, for those that are fighting from tyranny and trying to escape their with their thoughts and prayers to their homeland, now having to switch focus on trying to win an Olympic game with a set of individuals, or if you're a solo track, runner, or whatever the case might be, a relay runner with other people, you have to somehow turn the table and say, I need to focus on the game and winning this match, or winning this relay, or winning this track meet, or this swimming contest. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how any of these Olympic guys or gals happen to have things going on in their lives and be able to turn that into winning. That's got to be the hardest mental challenge, I think, that they're going to have to overcome in regards to what happens in their own personal lives, and not allowing it to affect their let's just say their Olympic game that they're participating in.
Well, and I'm sure we'll see some great coverage, some great bio pieces by NBC and Peacock, because that's part of what makes those Olympic games so special, is getting the backgrounds and the up close story about the athletes, not just America, but also some of the other countries, and the people that are stretching to get their Olympic moment. Countries that may not even win a medal, but just getting there is the win, which I'm sure for a lot of those athletes representing Ukraine, other countries that are, not in the position that America, Britain, Canada, France is, where they're highly paid, professionally managed programs. They're just getting it done and just trying to make it in. those are always great stories of the Olympic spirit. And that's coming up soon. We'll be able to talk about that a little bit more. Well, it's about time to go ahead and wrap it up and go to Weekly Champions, brought to you by the Wrestling Spotlight. Let's get ready for that with Taya Valkyrie, and then we'll go to the champions.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Taya Valkyrie, La Güera Loca, and you are watching Wrestling Spotlight.
So, got the Wrestling Spotlight belt. Rudy, who's your champion of the week?
My champion of the week is Katarina Tamanjic. If I said that right, if I apologize, I didn't know if I got that right or not, but I certainly tried. There was a portrait of her sitting inside of a rubbled building with where she used to practice at the Polytechnic Sports Complex that was destroyed by a Russian rocket attack. And the fact alone that she wanted to relive that by being there, by showing her frustration with the look on her face and the palm on her face, certainly set the stage for someone who I will be looking for and ultimately rooting for her as an individual in her respective sport. So just being able to turn that story around and make it a winning story for her life and hopefully give spirit to those around her and hope for a positive and bright future for Ukraine. So that's my champion of the week.
That's tough to beat. And I won't beat it, but I was at the quarterfinal for the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Soccer Championship, the U.S. Open Cup. It was Sporting Kansas City against FC Dallas. The game was Wednesday at Children's Mercy Park. Started at 8, ended at about 12:30 at night because of an extended storm delay. We had some pop-up thunderstorms, lightning, and it rained in buckets on Sporting Park. The game resumed after about a 2-hour delay, and this is what broke it open.
Swinger from Russell, free header, Danny Rosero. Is that the game winner? Does that send them to the semifinal? Sporting certainly feel like it.
There's the classic wide world of sports, the joy of victory, the agony of defeat. Sporting held on to win that game 2-1. It lasted over 4 hours. Danny Rosero punching it in to get the game winner. It's his 5th goal of his Sporting career and first goal in the U.S. Open Cup. They advance now to play the Indy 11 in the semifinals, so they're only 2 games away from a championship despite having a difficult season. So Danny Rosero for punching it in and showing the fight, because it's hard to stay focused after a long rain delay and playing the 3rd game in 7 days. So quality win. They win 2-1. With that, we'll wrap it up here. You can watch more sports and entertainment coverage right here on the FiredUP Network. See us on the True TV Plus service and also on sports.tv, the largest streaming sports platform in the country. It's all free, and those apps are available wherever you get your apps. For Rudy Reyes, I'm Gerald Bentley. Thanks a lot for joining us here, and have a great week. We'll see you again.